This episode of the Elevate Your Leadership podcast is brought to you in part by iFly Virginia Beach Indoor Skydiving. At iFly Virginia Beach, we bring people together through the dream of flight. To learn more about our leadership development and team building, visit iflyvirginiabeach.com.
Welcome to the Elevate Your Leadership podcast series with U.S. Navy Special Operations veteran, CEO, and hockey fanatic Bob Pizzini. Bob discusses leadership, success, failure, defining moments, and hard lessons learned with guests who are intentional in their approach to leadership. Leadership is a perishable skill. Use it or lose it. In this series, entrepreneurs, industry executives, academics, public figures, and other highly effective professionals share their formulas for success with you.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Elevate Your Leadership podcast with me, your host, Bob Pizzini. I love to speak to leaders nationally and internationally who not only bring great value to me and my organization, but these are people who I know will bring great value to you and your organization. And today's guest is no exception. Today's guest is Tricia Benn. Tricia is the Chief Community Officer of the C-Suite Network and the General Manager of the Hero Club, which is an invitation-only membership organization for CEOs, founders, and investors. And I have to admit, I'm a member. As an officer of these organizations, her mission is to build a platform and community that accelerates the success of C-level executives, owners, investors, and influencers. She is a leader in creating an executive community of collaboration based on integrity, transparency, and measuring success beyond the numbers alone, aka The Hero Factor, a book by our mutual friend Jeffrey Hazlett. This approach has driven her more than 20-year track record of industry disruption in building new businesses, revenue streams, and delivering double-digit year-over-year growth. In addition to sitting on multiple business, associations, and not-for-profit boards, Tricia serves as a senior executive for 3 enterprise-level organizations in market research, telecommunications, media marketing, and advertising. As a global chief marketing and strategy officer and U.S. managing director with MDC Partners, a $3 billion global holding company, Benn's leadership drove double-digit growth year over year and new contracts with some of the most important impact players in the world. Almost there, folks. This woman has done a lot with her life. An award-winning business leader and international speaker, Benn shares an inspiring, practical, and actionable message that empowers great leaders to take their businesses to the next level. That's why she's here. Trish, welcome to the Elevate Your Leadership podcast.
Bob, thank you so much. Oh my goodness. And I'm so grateful to be here with you. I absolutely, just like you, love nothing more than seeing great leaders succeed and have great impact in their communities. So really thrilled to be here with you and your audience today.
That's awesome. There's so many places we could start based on business, based on leadership, based on the C-Suite network and what it's done for me and what you've done for me and your leadership role within the C-Suite network. But let's just take it back to something really simple. I just read your bio, which clearly establishes you as a global leader. How do you approach leadership?
For me, there is nothing greater than certainly the responsibility to step up and have the impact you can have. But then next level truly is how you inspire, support, and see through the great leadership, the great success of everyone you touch. And that's what it is to create great teams that are succeeding and delivering on outcomes, not checklists. And it's also what we see across the entire platform of C-suite executives, owners, influencers in the C-suite network platform. It's a larger scale. We have 350,000 plus C-suite insiders, but it's the same thing.
Totally agree. One of the reasons I love doing these podcasts is I always hear things like outcomes, not checklists. What a key thing for leaders to focus on, right? Because at the end of the day, we are responsible for the outcome, especially if you have a board of directors in a publicly held organization, or even, in my case, owning my own business, 35 people on my team. Ultimately, I'm responsible for the outcome, and it's my job to enable the team to really do what they do. Did you just give us your definition of leadership, or is there more to say in terms of how you would define it?
If I were to put more detail around it, I would say the first step of great leadership is great support. So, at the end of the day, and you know this, Bob, you just alluded to it, as leaders, the higher up we are, either in the executive hierarchy or ownership, the more responsibility we take at the end of the day. There's no doubt. And when things go wrong, we hold that responsibility. But moving towards success, our role first and foremost is the support of great leaders on our team. So, I'm coming out with my new book. It's almost there, C-Suite Success.
Can't wait.
Success in the C-Suite. It's really, truly, and people get this wrong, let me lead the way. Yes, there's a certain extent of that. And that's when things go wrong. But the everyday is in the supporting of great leadership coming out in every level of your teams, internally and externally, to deliver on those outcomes. So then that's something I think people really get caught up on. It's not really about you. The higher level you go, the bigger the businesses you're building and scaling. It's really, truly about how you support as a leader and deliver greater leadership at every level and every association throughout your communities that you're serving and working with.
Completely agree. And that kind of just reminds me of my definition of leadership, which, to break it down into just 2 words, it's enabling others. My job is to enable others to accomplish their objectives. And, obviously their objectives are in line with the mission of the organization, but people also have personal objectives or objectives for personal growth and professional growth and things outside the organization. And, I really believe strongly in helping those that I lead achieve whatever their life's goals and life's objectives are.
Well, and that speaks to more of the strategies and tactics of how you support. That whole notion of being that empathetic leader, appreciating that there's far more to them than delivering one outcome that you expect from a work perspective, but how it all fits for them into something meaningful, purposeful, something they can celebrate, own, and really feel pride of delivery on, that connectivity that they've done great things and had great impact with the time that they've spent with what they've delivered. That is so critical, and it never gets old, as you well know, Bob.
What a way to put a dot on that one. It never gets old. Completely agree. What surprises me, and this, I don't know if never gets old is the right way to identify the following, but so many leaders out there still don't understand that. And, younger leaders have to go through a learning process, obviously, and get some experience. But I'm talking about business owners. I own a small business, small to mid-sized business owners. So many of them still use tactics, if you will, that are bullying. I'm sure you've encountered some of that in your past. I'm just surprised how many leaders are out there, small to mid-sized business leaders, who don't have that respect for their teammates, and they're bullies, and the dollar is the only thing they ever talk about. It's shocking that they're still out there. And I'm sure you've encountered that in your past, as I know I have, and sometimes those military leaders really, there's good ones and there's not so good ones. But anyway, can you speak to that at all?
I share the sentiment entirely. I find it shocking because at the end of the day, if you truly believe in the mission that you're delivering on, and Bob, for me, you and your service and all of our military and veterans, I'm so grateful and appreciative for that. Alignment on the mission means that you sacrifice a great deal. The commitment, the engagement, et cetera, is just phenomenal. So to me, I think about great business that way. Great leaders, great business, great impact. So if we think to ourselves as business leaders that are delivering great impact, we have great business models to be able to do that, give back to our communities, create great work environments, create great experiences, product services, whatever it might be, then to me, the whole notion of how you would want to belittle or drag down somebody that is delivering, I just can't comprehend it. And it doesn't mean that you don't have the tough conversations. There are tough conversations. Not everything is walking through, tiptoeing through the roses. There are really challenging, difficult conversations to be had. But those can be the most incredible opportunities to really re-engage, re-inspire, and realign around that mission of how we're going to succeed and how that's going to feel and what we're going to be able to do with that success. And to me, that's just so much greater, and it feels so much better. And I always say, that's one of the things where it becomes addictive. If you can do that for one person, then why not 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000 and keep going?
Yeah.
It's so incredible. And as business leaders, we have such an incredible opportunity to hold that space and create as a contagion.
Yeah, a contagion and addictive, the other word you used, and completely agree. Yeah, I had to unfortunately let somebody go a few months ago, and this person was a wonderful person, positive demeanor, great attitude, really wanted to do a good job. This person was in a leadership position that was just a little bit too much. And I had the discussion personally, this was one of my managers, but I had the discussion personally. And of course I rehearsed for it, practiced for it, make sure that I was prepared to deliver the message as clearly and in this case, as softly as possible. And the way she responded to it was just incredible. I mean, short of saying thank you, you could see the relief. And, we're still on good terms, but it was one of those difficult discussions. Like you said, sometimes you have to have those difficult discussions. And in this case, it was more difficult because she was so nice about it. So.
Yes, I understand, Bob. But those conversations, to me, it's important to be transparent, create the space for those conversations, make sure that there is that setup for success, because in that scenario, you become now an ally for her, an advocate.
In this case, there's no question about that. So this was a female, obviously. From your perspective, is being a woman in the C-suite different? Or, you're not a man, so it's not like you can make a concrete comparison, but what's different from your perspective, or what are the challenges? There's books written on this and there's so much discussion about this, but what's your take?
It's something that I marvel at. My upbringing was one where I thought women were the ones that kept track of financial things and spoke all over the world and ran businesses. And so I didn't have any clue. My mother was a veterinarian. She had me, then went right to school, became a veterinarian. Then she had my brother and sister while she did her master's. And it never occurred to me that along the wall in the building of the whole department she ran, province/countrywide, that it was man. And then my mother would be the next picture as the only woman. It never registered. And my grandmother, my mother's mother, she started her own business and had her own money. And there was never any of those kind of scenarios of someone needed to ask a man for money or
permission.
Just things where it was just so foreign to me. So I actually ended up taking women's studies as my minor, just so I could understand what happened out there in the world.
Yeah.
I don't get it. So, and then I went into public affairs and political polling and so on, which tended to be a very male dominated space. And then of course, I love business. I love business models. I love creating successful, profitable businesses, great teams. I mean, I just love it all. And so I got just incredible opportunities very early on where I decided I could use this model. This is amazing. When you make a lot of money, you get to do what you want and nobody messes with you. And what that meant in the old model was you could do anything you wanted from a bad perspective, burn and churn at the very least, and create unhappy workplaces and so on. A lot of ego, a lot of different things like that happening. And for me, it meant I could really empower great teams, because that meant I had the retention of staff, retention of clients. I could charge more because they were getting greater delivery of the service. And so it really it grew on itself. So I had this incredible window and opportunity. And it's interesting as you go through the different age bands. So I just turned 50 last year. And after building various businesses, integrating businesses, I've been, an international executive my entire adult career. And there's these different kind of bands of time. So, now I sit in rooms where I'm the only woman again, it's really quite odd. And at 50, it's my age grouping that in university reached parity in education.
Ah, how interesting.
Yes. So the promise was, well, there's parity in education. So by the time we reached 50, 60, and so on, we would see parity in the C-suite, in the boardrooms, and so on. And the numbers, as you know, Bob, are abysmal. So my perspective on this is one where I am really, truly dedicated to creating trusting relationships in a community where people have the opportunity to interact and get to learn and understand and know each other in those trusted relationships, to think of each other for different opportunities that arise. And so I am a huge believer that the systemic bias, right, where those opportunities are so far and few between, the opportunities aren't given just because it's not known, it's not created in terms of that bond. Because the C-suite, you don't get a C-suite role, you don't get onto boards because you are the most talented or you have the best experience. You get there because somebody on that board knows and trusts you.
Yeah, trust is the biggest factor in the workplace, and it doesn't matter if you're the CEO or the newest person on the team. When we interview potential teammates, we're looking for moral and ethical character. We'll teach the skill set. We'll bring the requisite toolkit, if you will. That trust, that moral and ethical character is huge. You mentioned a couple other things too that just really took me back in time. Ego. And then your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, when you're talking about parity. As you know, with my military background, there's a lot of physicality, a lot of physical fitness. In my 20s, it's all about how much can I lift, how fast can I run, in my case, Navy diver, how deep can I dive, how late can we stay out? But ego, it was a big part of that. And, especially when you got a team of type A's. But my point is, and then in my 30s, it's the ego starts to adjust a little bit. The body starts to hurt a little bit from all the abuse. Your 40s, if things are going the right way, your ego corrects even more in your 40s. Your body hurts even more in your 40s. Having entered the 50s a few years ago, I think I've got my ego in check. It is something that I check on every day, if you will. And then I don't care too much about the physicality. I care about the lab work. So, it's all about maintaining proper cholesterol and glucose, et cetera. So ego for me was a big thing. And the last thing you said was you get to these boardrooms because people trust you, and trust is something that it takes your whole career to build, and you could lose it in a day, so it's critical. It's
really true. And the fact is, trust is extended. So it really matters who your community is. So Bob, how I know you, how I work with you, I know that if you tell me, Tricia, we just had this recently, you can trust this person. I got it.
Right.
Because I know, love, and trust you. I know that can be extended to who you tell me that can be extended to. Now, I don't just take it that anybody that's connected to you. No, you've shared that with me. and that's what trust is that continued extension. And systemic bias is just not realizing that those things aren't happening, right? Creating scenarios where it's not reinforcing a wider berth. So anyone listening, if you hear yourself saying, and we've all done this, but I love women, I love men, I love you, fill in the blank.
Yeah,
you're in trouble. You're in trouble. That has nothing to do with it. And I pray you do.
Yeah, right.
But it's, how are we extending those opportunities? And I think also being really, truly trying to be empathetic to different scenarios that different groupings have. We can really only know our own experience. And recently we had, and I facilitated this phenomenal conversation with one of our C-suite network leaders. Her name is Sherry James. She's a DEI expert, and she wouldn't like me saying that because it's more about belonging and
Sure.
That full extension of everybody being included in the conversation. So I should probably correct right away. But we had this incredible conversation, and one of the shares in that conversation that a Black woman experienced was just beyond imagination. And my skin is as pale white as it gets. I mean, embarrassingly white. I have a lot of makeup for you to be able to see me, Bob. And
Tricia's from Canada, in case we didn't mention that already. So
anyone listening, oh my goodness, I could use some sun. So the experience that was shared was so beyond anything I could possibly imagine that it really was a shocker to say, oh my goodness, if I even had a remote piece of that, what I say or the frustration I feel or what I might assume when someone says something not intending negative could very easily be shaped, and so how much more grace can I give? How much more can I seek understanding? How much more effort can I make to be in communities where I can learn, grow, and create those trusted relationships?
This is a kooky example, but I'll just share kind of a thought I had this morning. 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, run fast, things start to hurt. I care about my labs. So part of that is yoga. So I've been doing yoga regularly for about 2.5 years now. And there's this woman who shows up to yoga class and she's there. I go 3 times a week. She's there every single time. Today I went for a 4th time and she was there. So she's probably there 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't look like somebody who does yoga. She's a very heavy set woman. And the 20-year-old Bob would have said, what the hell are you? Why bother? And the 30-year-old Bob probably would have said that too. But the 50-year-old Bob says, you go, girl, you're here doing it. You're doing the best you can. And that's all anybody can ask for, and I tell my kids, you don't have to be, my son plays hockey, my daughter plays volleyball. You don't have to be the best on the team. You just get out there and do your best.
Yes, absolutely. And make sure that you're taking care of yourself. I love your focus always on making sure you're hydrated and you're staying healthy. You're monitoring, where you are with your own personal health. And I would add to that list, sleep, so frequently, we have executives that celebrate. And this is something when you're in your 20s, 30s, maybe even into your 40s. But if you're showcasing, celebrating that you don't sleep, your ability to act effectively as a business leader is massively challenged, massively compromised. And all you have to do is look at any sleep research to figure that out. It's incredible how impaired you are with reduced sleep.
So executive functioning, right? Your ability to see, literally, your ability to see, your ability to hear, and your ability to think. That's your executive functioning. And absolutely, sleep deprivation, or not even sleep deprivation, but poor quality sleep, all of that. And of course, you've been to enough of my discussions in the full Elevate Your Leadership presentation. I really dive deep on rest, hydration, nutrition, exercise, brain and heart health, and lifelong learning. When I connected all those things, they were all there. Throughout my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, they were all there, but I didn't connect them all and say, this is how they enhance each other. And when I figured that out, you go from, man, when is it going to be 5 o'clock to it's 5 o'clock already,
Yes. Yeah. Well, and the other thing is your ability to have fun and enjoy that time. We have to be having fun. Life is way too short to be miserable in what we're doing. And if you don't have those things in place that you just said, Bob, your ability to have fun is, again, severely limited. And that takes away the creativity and the, how to solve for problems. And that, as you said, as executives, that is our challenge every day. How are we going to solve for problems? Nobody comes to us saying, everything in the world is wonderful. Have a great day. That's not our job.
Yeah. Hey, boss, just wanted to tell you, everything is wonderful.
There could be 99 things that are absolutely incredible, amazing. You will have to deal with the one thing that is.
That's the one thing everyone's going to come and tell you about. Yeah.
The only thing you're going to learn about as the leader. So away you go.
So you said something else, though. I mean, this might be an epiphany for me as well. The fun factor. Again, that's been out there somewhere, but you just helped me link it. You helped me lasso it and reel it in. I really focus on culture within my organization. For the new listeners out there, I own a business called I Fly Virginia Beach Indoor Skydiving. I'm sure a lot of you have done it. It's very fun. It's a fun activity. I have 35 people on my team, most of them in their 20s, some in their 30s, a couple in their 40s, and then there's me. Whether it's my business or a restaurant or whatever the organization is, people want to come to work. They want to enjoy coming to work. They want to enjoy being around the people that they spend so much of their time with. And that's called culture. That's a key component of culture. And that's something I spend a lot of time thinking about. So fun factor. Love it.
It's so important, Bob. And here's the thing. It's not cheesiness. Oh, we'll make it fun. We'll put, whatever the latest craze is, a foosball table or like, I don't know, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is, because you can play in so many different ways. And that might be little jokes. It might be little, little games you play to get through things. With my business partner, we'll poke each other with how many emails are in our inbox, and that's just, we have hundreds, if not more than 1,000 emails just in our own individual main mailbox, let alone everything else in terms of communication, all the social platforms, all of our other emails and aliases and so on. I mean, there's so much. So that's a way of making it fun. Hey, I'm down to 20. What are you at?
There is so much. Holy cow. So we're going to pick up on that. Folks, we're talking to Tricia Benn, the Chief Community Officer of the C-Suite Network and the General Manager of the Hero Club. And we are going to take a quick timeout for capitalism. Tricia and I are both good capitalists, so we will be right back. And we are back talking to Tricia Benn, the Chief Community Officer of the C-Suite Network and General Manager of the Hero Club, somebody who I have the honor of calling a personal friend and somebody who I've known for probably 4 or so years now. And we've interacted at many events, either in person or in this virtual format. But we talk all things leadership, and your background in leading is really diverse. You used the word diversity earlier in kind of a different context, but can you just help us understand how you've been shaped as a leader by being involved in so many different types of organizations?
Thank you, Bob. It is. I feel like I've had these different chunks of life. First, I have to say, I grew up on a farm, and I grew up around farming people. My mother became a veterinarian, and that teaches you everyone is useful. Everyone is useful. There is no excuse. It doesn't matter what your body parts are. You were talking about being a woman. You don't get to say, oh, I'm not bailing today because I have female body parts. No, that doesn't work. we are all delivering, and that has to be done. There's a mission that's absolutely essential in serving all of the care of a farm. So step number one, and I saw that both of my parents delivered. I was expected to deliver. Then I became a competitive figure skater. I trained at the Olympic Training Center in Canada 6 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day. And guess what? You have short-term, mid-term, long-term goals, and you set out to achieve them, and you deliver, and you toughen up. I had someone on my team this week say, Tricia, you're so incredibly tough. And I was thinking, when you were figure skating, how many times did you fall? I mean, I couldn't possibly calculate how many times I fell, because that's what you do. You fall and fall and fall until you fall less frequently.
Yeah.
There's no not
It's also called learning.
Yes. There's no not falling. It's just less frequently. And that's, you see that in the athletes that we see in the Olympics and so on. It's not that they never fall. They're just trying to get to that less frequently on that day, and that's what all of the exercise and all of the mental preparation, physical preparation, et cetera, is all about, is less of it or more consistency, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then in my business life, it really truly has been just this passion to be able to deliver great team builds, great business models that allowed great things to happen. So I feel like, with the different things that I've done in building different businesses, from political affairs and political polling, and literally with every kind of client you can possibly imagine, communications testing. I wrote all of the press releases for a North America wide company, all of those kinds of things, through to building a full insights practice inside of over a $20 billion company, to the agency holding company that MDC Partners was, and having P&L responsibilities for one of our New York-based businesses. And now here in C-Suite, really scaling out this entire incredible platform that C-Suite Network is. I feel honored every single day that what I get to do is work with the most incredible people on the planet, just like you, Bob. And the only rule I have every day is that I have to create amazing business models that my internal teams, my external teams, all want to wrap around, be on that mission with me, and help deliver that great scaling success so we keep getting to do it and have that great impact across all of our communities. And that's the culture piece you were talking about from an entire community perspective. Here in the C-Suite, we're about great business leaders creating great business models. You have to have a sustainable business model. And I love that part. And then you do something with that. We're not having our success just to be able to thump our chests and say we've got the most toys. We want to be able to do great things in our communities, serve our communities in so many ways. And I know you've done that in so many ways, Bob. Everyone across our platform has that DNA of it needs to matter. Success, just to say it, is meaningless. It's being able to have that impact that makes it really, truly motivating, inspiring, and something worth continuing on the mission for, on the journey for, and bringing others into.
I can tell you quite simply, that has been my experience over the last 4 years. And, I didn't know what I was looking for, but I was looking for something. And that is, what you've sought out to create. I would say congratulations, because I'm the protege, so to speak, or I just feel like I've grown so much in the last 4 years, personally and professionally, right? Professionally, obviously, is kind of the main trade space, but personally as well. And I know that that's a focus inside and outside of your organization. So it's working, keep going. And I love being part of this. And I mean, my business acumen and my ability to see through the fog, my ability to not worry so much about the fog, there's all these things that go into it. It's great that you've taken your life's journey and wound up where you are now to really help others in the business community. And I will say this too, the Hero Club, the C-Suite, the Hero Club, Thought Leader Council, you alluded to it, they are selective. They're selective in that you have to bring things for each other. And they literally have this kind of metaphor, the story where, come over for dinner the first time, awesome, good to meet you. How's the rest of that go?
Yeah, second time, wonderful, wonderful. Third time, you're bringing the hot plate.
That's right. That's right. Yeah,
absolutely. But again, coming back to culture, it's really critical that you set that space. So, Bob, any community space that C-Suite exists in, we share the principles: relevancy, reach, reciprocity, and respect. And that is all an encapsulation of what we can promise in the C-Suite space, and that we all stand for together in that space. And so that really just sets the tone. There are other communities that we're all part of where we think, oh my goodness, right? And we'll be in various stages of trying to fix, trying to figure out, trying to extricate ourselves. There's all those kinds of things. Yeah. But here, this is where we are, This is what we do. This is who we are to each other. And that's so important. And then in terms of business deliverables, aligning people around outcomes can be very challenging when you're doing a culture shift, but so incredibly empowering when you're looking at the orientation to those outcomes. So the business metrics, we talk about culture a lot, Bob, and I think sometimes people get confused that we want to make people feel nice and we want to give people hugs, but it's a business. Yes, it is a business. But when you're aligning true values in terms of your care, your empathy for those that you are side to side with on the mission, then you have the opportunity to really focus on those outcomes, and those metrics become something that is deliverable against, as opposed to completely overwhelming out there, something I can't control, deliver on alone. And none of us can really truly deliver on any of the outcomes we seek alone.
Totally
So
agree.
when we wrap that culture around those metrics that are most critical, they'll be our sales, our funnel, and
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
things that we want to be able to achieve as an organization. It might be our philanthropic efforts, et cetera. Then we get to metrics that matter and that people can feel that not only the success and the journey to the success, but also what that success is able to deliver in their community.
A friend of mine, Marty Strong, he calls it cardinal direction. But it's another way of saying exactly what you just said. You bring everybody along, we establish a cardinal direction. When everybody, it's a shared vision, essentially, right? When everybody recognizes that, everybody figures out how they can contribute to it. They contribute to it. They feel good about their role and their contribution. And yeah, that's huge. Real quick, as you were speaking, 2 FA-18 Hornets flew over. So I am coming to our listeners from Virginia Beach, Virginia. So if you hear the jet noise in the background, we call that the sound of freedom, but I don't think it interfered with your audio. So we're getting close to the end. I want to ask you about your book. Let me do 3 quick questions. What's the title? What's it about? Why'd you write it?
So the title is Success in the C-Suite, Great Leaders, Business, Impact. So, very much aligning everything I believe in terms of why we succeed as leaders in business, where we could be pigeonholed as, what I was just talking about, Bob, where it's like, oh, you care about people. What about the metrics? No, this delivers faster, larger, and more sustainably on the impact with that success. So,
okay.
And then my subtitle is map your C-suite success in 8 simple steps. And the reason that I wrote the book, interestingly enough, I thought early on in my life, wouldn't it be amazing if I had something of value to share in a book one day? And I love words, and I don't read as much as I want to, but I do read pretty extensively. And so that was always something I kind of amused myself with over the years. And then I had someone approach me to say, look, you should be writing a book. Let's get this done. This has actually become something that I've had to frame in the position of service. What can I share that will create value for people to understand the framing of what real C-suite success is? And Bob, you know this, we don't ever say what success is. We say we want to help you accelerate your success. We have 4 pillars to do that. We have our networking and education. We have our media and distribution. We have our professional services. We have our marketplace. But we never, ever, ever say what success is. And that's because every single one of our leaders, partners across the entire platform has a different definition of what success is for them. And so we want to support that vision, not somebody else's vision of what success is. And so whether your ambition is to be the CEO of, an enterprise-sized organization, or an influencer that is impacting lives in the coaching and consulting you're doing with a small mastermind group, or anything else.
And there's a lot out there.
Oh my goodness. Investing with, startups. I mean, there's a million different things that you can do to create incredible success, give back to your communities and so on. So this is truly my opportunity to share the insights of the last, 20 some odd years working with private sector, public sector, not-for-profit government leaders, and my own business builds to share some of that structure that creates the opportunity for true success.
I can't wait to read it. When will that be? When's it coming out?
I have a keynote speech that I'm giving at the end of March. So with any luck, Bob, it will be the end of March 2022. So that's the goal, but it's very, very close.
Okay. Did you use C-suite assets to publish, edit and publish and all that?
We have C-Suite Network Publishing, and so this is actually a publisher that we had before we had that in place.
Okay.
Mine will kind of overlap in different ways, but so excited. We have so much more coming in all of our C-Suite publishing space. Also, we have our book launch parties, our bestseller TV episodes, doing all of that C-Suite network.
That is so cool. I can't wait to, I'm 9/10 of the way done with my book, and I
can't wait to read yours either, Bob.
It's kind of fun to write it too. Kind of my discovery in the writing process is you get to know yourself a little bit better. And you also, in my case, there's been defining moments in my life. I didn't extract all the value out of at the time. But when you go back and you really think about these things, you go, man, that changed me, hopefully for the better, but that moment, that event, that person, that encounter, that changed me. And I need to relish that. Part of my discovery. What have we left out? What else can we learn about Tricia Benn?
One thing you mentioned, and we started talking a little bit about diversity. Here's one thing: diversity, adversity, disruption. I mean, all of those kinds of things that feel or can feel daunting. Somebody has a different opinion. Somebody might think something differently than I do. The market changing overnight. These kinds of things that feel very, very challenging. I think it's so important to reframe as quickly as possible. And again, make sure you have those trusted people by your side, that when the chips are down and when there are challenges from that perspective, that you're looking at those things not as the most overwhelming, oh my goodness, kind of what will the world become challenge, but truly an incredible opportunity. And so, one of my chapters in my book is how you truly take those scenarios and make them into a superpower, and aligning on mission, knowing you're going to get through these things together. When you bring the diversity of a team together to win, and everybody truly does have different strengths, different communities, different ways of looking at things, oh my goodness, there's where you can create really phenomenal success. And so I think that whole notion of how we look at what we've been taught to think of as these huge challenges are really enormous opportunities for creating greater success and taking advantage of new things that are happening. Like when I think disruption, I get excited because something's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So okay, how do we capitalize on this? And I mean, my goodness, COVID is such a great example of massive disruption. And although I never want to go through 2020 again, it was the hardest year on our business. And for so many of our leaders across the platform, even when their businesses took off tremendously, the challenges were enormous, supply chain issues and staffing. And I mean, there's just so many things, even if businesses were, growing exponentially. But for C-Suite Network, for example, those enormous challenges catapulted us immediately 3 to 5 years ahead in our strat plan.
Wow, that is incredible. That's remarkable.
Right. So I think that's something that's just so important in terms of leadership, is being that steady till, making sure you've got people by your side that say, that's right, we're going to succeed through this. We're going to figure this out. Is it challenging? Of course it is. But we're going to win. So, and I love that analogy of, you might lose a battle here or there, but you're going to win the war. Let's go and we'll figure it out.
Everyone is useful. Like you said earlier, just touching on the diversity thing real quick. I wrote a chapter about diversity and inclusion. And, I was in the Navy for 26 years, U.S. Navy Special Operations. And while it's not a perfect organization, it is certainly the most diverse and inclusive organization that I've ever experienced. My private sector experience has been somewhat different. And I have to say, I am surprised. I've awoken, if you will, and I don't mean woke that way at all. I'm in a different culture now. I'm in a different environment than I was when I was in the military. Here's where I'm going with this. And here's what I discovered with my business. The key to diversity is inclusion, which is essentially what you said. But that's literally one of the chapters in my book, or one of the main themes in that chapter, is that when you hear everybody's voice, that's where diverse people show up, diverse opinions are shared. So inclusion for me, where I'm at in my journey right now, for me, the key to diversity is inclusion.
Things like, so perfect example of that, Bob, is we've experienced through the virtual life we've had to live through that, guess what? Executives can be parents. Big shocker. Guess what?
Yeah.
Many are.
Yeah.
And yet there was this ethos previously that, heaven forbid, it would look like, you're a parent. And I think as we look at different opportunities that opens up, does somebody who's working from a home office deliver less if they're able to be there at the house when their children get home from school, or there to make sure that they're off to the bus? I don't believe so.
Oh, in my experience, they deliver more. Moral and ethical people feel compelled to go the extra mile because they're not sitting at the office, and they don't have the 30-minute drive each way. So that adds an hour to their workday, perhaps, to their life, perhaps. I am convinced as long as people are of good moral and ethical character, you get greater productivity if the telecommuting, if that works with the business model.
Agreed. And, so this notion of, what makes a great leader, again, you look at it and say, okay, so traditionally a man who has a family and children is responsible, is likable, is strong, capable, right? And a woman is a mom. So it wouldn't necessarily make her more attractive in an executive role. And now, clearly, there's no difference. So I think there are opportunities to really rethink how those kind of systemic things seep into the perception and opportunity that we give to people. And again, an enormous opportunity to focus on outcomes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just brilliance. This is just brilliance. And for the listeners out there, if you lead an organization, or if you are going to lead an organization, or if you want to lead an organization, or if you want to build your own organization, the conversation that Tricia Benn and I just had is something that you should listen to probably 2, 3, 4 times a year, because these concepts and these behaviors that we have, they're perishable, right? We have to remind ourselves of these things. It's not that we're not good people. It's just that there is a lot of clutter in the day-to-day, and we have to kind of reground and rebaseline and remind ourselves that I need to do good. I need to help others feel good, and I need to help others achieve their objectives. So Tricia Benn, Chief Community Officer at the C-Suite Network. I can't wait till we meet in New York and Boston for the Hero Club event, first live event we've had in a few years. But what a wonderful discussion, Tricia. And is there anything else you want to say before we sign off?
I just want to thank you so much, Bob, for your leadership, for creating this space where, we as a listening community to what you've created in this podcast can really think to focusing on our leadership, how we're keeping ourselves, in that space to be able to provide the best we possibly can and deliver successful businesses that have impact. So thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you for listening to the Elevate Your Leadership podcast. To contact Bob directly or to learn more about how Bob can advance you and your organization through leadership training, team building, executive coaching, and public speaking, visit robertpizzini.com. Robert, Pizzini.com, and connect with him on LinkedIn.